Olivia had always known she was born to run. Since childhood, her talent was undeniable, and her dedication led her to become one of the most promising athletes in track and field. She trained relentlessly, sacrificing moments of her youth to chase the dream of becoming a world champion. But to her, it was all worth it. Running wasn't just a passion, it was her identity. At the peak of her career, during a decisive competition, a sharp snap in her knee changed her life forever. The diagnosis was a crushing blow, a severe injury that required surgery and a long recovery period. She tried to come back, fought against her own body, but she was never the same again. The dream she had spent years building crumbled in a matter of seconds. Without sponsorships and without a college degree to fall back on, Olivia had to face reality. She needed a job and found work as a sales associate in a sports store. Every day, she helped customers choose running shoes, none of them knowing that she had once been one of the best. Each interaction was a cruel reminder of what she had lost. The monotonous routine and tight paycheck became her new normal. She tried to ignore the emptiness she felt, but deep down, she knew something inside her was broken. However, without realizing it, small signs began to appear around her. Through conversations with customers and former colleagues, a thought started to take shape. What if there was another way to stay connected to the sports world? The first few months at the store were bearable, but over time, frustration began to weigh heavily on her. Every day, she watched beginners excitedly buy gear for their first races. Meanwhile, she, who had once been an elite athlete, went unnoticed, folding shirts and organizing shelves. Her salary was low, barely covering her basic expenses. She lived in a small rented apartment, splitting bills with a roommate she hardly ever saw. Every month, the financial strain worsened. Track and field had never been a lucrative sport, and without sponsorships or a backup plan, Olivia felt trapped. For the first time in her life, she questioned her own worth. Her mother, always her biggest supporter, tried to encourage her to take a new path, suggesting she go back to school or find something different. But Olivia refused to accept that her story in sports was over. To her, even thinking about it meant admitting she had lost everything. Running wasn't just something she did, it was who she was. How could she be happy away from the track? The final blow came when she saw an old rival winning a championship she had once dreamed of competing in. She watched the race on her phone, her eyes welling with tears. As that athlete lifted the trophy, Olivia was behind the store counter, folding a random uniform. A mix of sadness, anger, and envy washed over her. The sports world had moved on, and she had been left behind. The routine started to take a toll on her mental health. Olivia's eating habits declined, her sleep suffered, and she avoided going out. The light in her eyes had disappeared. Her days blended into one another, and without motivation, she isolated herself more and more. Even customers noticed her lack of energy. "You look tired," one of them remarked one day. She forced a smile, but inside, she felt completely empty. One day, an older customer struck up a conversation while browsing for running shoes. He mentioned that he had recently started running and was looking for tips to improve his performance. Instinctively, Olivia shared techniques she had used during her elite training. The customer was impressed and asked if she had ever considered coaching or offering online training sessions. The question echoed in her mind for days. Deep down, Olivia knew she still had valuable knowledge, something that many beginner runners could benefit from. But self-doubt consumed her. Would anyone actually pay to learn from her? Could she teach without feeling like she was simply reliving her own failure? Uncertain, Olivia tried to ignore the idea, but everything around her seemed to push her in that direction. In the following days, she overheard more customers discussing online training programs, running apps, and virtual coaching. It was as if the universe was screaming at her to consider this possibility. But the fear of failing held her back. During a dinner with her mother, Olivia finally voiced her doubts. To her surprise, her mother encouraged her, saying that maybe her role now wasn't to compete, but to help others achieve their own dreams. But Olivia still hesitated. What if I fail? What if no one is interested? Her mother smiled and replied, "But what if it works?" The next day, Olivia opened Instagram and searched for online coaches. To her surprise, she found several former athletes who had turned their experience into successful businesses. Some sold courses, others offered personalized coaching. For the first time, she saw a real possibility. But the doubt still lingered. That night, she decided to test something simple. She made a post sharing her story and offering free running tips for beginners. The next morning, she woke up to dozens of messages and comments from people asking for more information. For the first time in a long while, she felt a rush, not of fear, but of excitement. Something was happening. But before she could get too excited, a thought paralyzed her. Posting something was easy, but turning it into a real business was a different story. What did she know about sales? About marketing? About attracting clients? Olivia was now at a crossroads. Continue the safety of the job she hated or take the risk of creating something new, despite having no guarantees. Olivia spent the entire week reflecting on the flood of messages she had received after her first post. People she had never met were interested in what she had to say. Some asked about training routines, others about injuries, and many sought advice on staying motivated. For the first time in years, she felt that her voice still had value in the world of sports. However, along with excitement came insecurity. Creating content was one thing, but turning it into a business? How would she do that on her own? She had no experience in marketing, no idea how to structure a training program, and above all, she was afraid of failing. The failure on the track was still an open wound. What if she tried and failed again? During her shift at the store, Olivia found herself distracted, watching runners pass by on the street. She remembered how she used to feel when she ran. The adrenaline before a race, the pride after an intense workout. She realized that deep down, what scared her wasn't just the possibility of failure, but also the possibility of success. What if she actually managed to create something great? That night, on impulse, she enrolled in a free course on digital business. She spent hours watching videos and reading articles on how to turn knowledge into an online service. It was an entirely new world for her, but something inside told her that it was now or never. For the first time, she felt she had direction. However, as soon as she started planning, fear came rushing back. Olivia had no financial security, and quitting her job to invest in this idea seemed reckless. If something went wrong, she had no backup plan. The sports store paid poorly, but at least it was a steady paycheck. Did she have the courage to give up the little she had for something that didn't even exist yet? The next day, she talked to her mother about her idea. She expected cautious advice, but to her surprise, her mother was firm. You spent your whole life training to be the best. Now you just need to train for something new. Those words echoed in Olivia's mind. What if she approached this new phase as just another kind of training? That same week, something unexpected happened. A former coach reached out after seeing her post and said he would love to refer her to a group of beginners looking for an online coach. Olivia's heart raced. This could be the push she needed. Yet, she still hesitated. Was she truly ready to take on this responsibility? The dilemma grew. On one side, an opportunity to reclaim her place in the sports world, helping others and rebuilding her identity. On the other, the security of a stable job with no prospects for growth. Any decision would have consequences. If she went all in on this project and failed, she might not get another chance anytime soon. One ordinary afternoon at the store, a customer complimented her explanation about running shoes and asked, "Have you ever thought about becoming a coach?" Olivia smiled but didn't respond. In that moment, she realized that the universe had already given her the answer. The real question was, would she have the courage to follow it? That night, Olivia picked up her phone and opened an email she had written to the store manager but had never dared to send. It was her resignation letter. She stared at the screen for minutes as her mind waged a battle between reason and instinct. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and made a choice. She knew she didn't have all the answers or any guarantees that this would work. But if there was one thing athletics had taught her, it was that every great achievement begins with a first step. With shaky hands and a racing heart, she clicked send. Her decision was made. The next morning, Olivia woke up feeling different. Fear and anxiety were still there, but alongside them, a new feeling was growing: freedom. Now, she had to turn this choice into something real. What would come next? She didn't know yet, but for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. After resigning, Olivia felt the weight of reality. The fear remained, but instead of paralyzing her, it now pushed her forward. In the following days, she structured her plan. She created a professional profile on social media, designed personalized training packages, and started producing daily content. Every step was a challenge, but she knew this was how it all began. The unexpected support from former track and field colleagues made all the difference. Referrals started coming in, and her first students appeared. Ordinary people, beginner runners looking for guidance from someone experienced. For the first time in years, Olivia felt that her knowledge was truly valued. It was no longer about medals. It was about making a real impact on people's lives. Over time, her client base grew, and Olivia realized she could expand even further. She created an online training program, reaching clients from different places. What once seemed like failure had transformed into reinvention. She didn't need to be on the track to stay in the sport. Her purpose had always been there. She just had to see it from a different perspective. Now, with her business firmly established, Olivia understands that true victory isn't just about breaking records, but about adapting, learning, and continuing forward. Athletics had taught her discipline and resilience, qualities that were crucial to her success beyond the track. She finally accepted that her dream hadn't ended. It had simply changed form. Today, Olivia shares her story to inspire others facing unexpected new beginnings. Her message is clear. Dreams don't always happen the way we plan, but that doesn't mean they have to end. When we embrace new possibilities, we discover that there's more than one way to live our passion.